Chapter 1. The Girl Who Learned to Hide. The sizzle of the grill was a low hiss, spitting grease onto a range that Ayla had scrubbed raw only an hour before. Rain hammered the diner's plate glass window, blurring the neon sign into a smear of pink and blue. It was 3 in the morning. The air hung thick with the smell of stale coffee, bleach, and the lonely scent of wet pavement. Ayla kept her head down. This was the rhythm of her life: hide, survive, repeat. She wore anonymity like a heavy cloak, a shield forged from shame. For 5 years, she had lived in this human city, a ghost haunting the graveyard shift. She worked nights because the darkness was a kindermaster. She spoke only when necessary, her voice carefully pitched to be forgettable. She scrubbed, she poured, she vanished. A jangling bell announced a customer. Ayla's shoulders tightened. Her wolf, that starved, sleeping thing inside her, stirred with a familiar, low ache. Don't look up. Don't be seen. Don't exist. It was a mantra that had kept her alive. The man was just a trucker, shaking water from his coat. He grunted an order for coffee. Ayla nodded, her eyes fixed on the countertop. She moved with practiced efficiency, her body small, her presence smaller. She was a master of becoming invisible, of folding herself into the background until she was just another part of the worn-out scenery. She did this because visibility meant pain. Visibility meant judgment. Visibility meant remembering the cold, crushing weight of his voice in front of the entire pack. Rejection. The memory was a physical thing, a shard of ice permanently lodged beneath her ribs. It made her hand tremble as she placed the heavy mug on the counter. The trucker barely glanced at her. He was focused on the small, flickering television mounted in the corner. The local news was on, grainy and loud. Major disruption to traffic as security protocols are finalized, the anchorwoman said, her voice tinny. Preparations for the Lycan King's arrival are unprecedented. Ayla froze. Her breath hitched. The name hit her like a physical blow. King. Not Alpha. King. They say he's uniting all the territories, the trucker muttered to the anchorwoman, oblivious. About time. These woods haven't been safe in years. On the screen, a grainy image appeared. It was a motorcade, black and imposing. But then it cut to a file photo. A man stepping from a car, surrounded by guards. He was taller than she remembered. Broader. The camera couldn't capture the sheer, suffocating power that rolled off him, but Ayla could feel it. Even through the screen. It was Ronan. Her fingers went slack. The heavy glass coffee pot she was refilling slipped. It didn't just drop, it shattered against the tile floor. Hot coffee and glass sprayed everywhere. The trucker jumped, cursing. Hey, watch it. But Ayla couldn't hear him. She couldn't move. She stared at the screen, at the face of the man who had broken her world. He was here. Not in some distant, fortified capital, but here. Visiting the nearby lands. Her wolf, so dormant for so long, awoke with a single, agonizing howl that echoed only in her skull. Mate. The sound of her own gasping breath finally broke the spell. Sorry, she whispered, her voice cracking. I'm sorry. I'll clean it. She scrambled for a rag, her hands shaking so violently she could barely grip it. The smell of burnt coffee filled her nose, but beneath it, she imagined she could smell it. That phantom scent that haunted her dreams. Pine. Winter. And a unique, electric tang of ozone. She had to get out. Not just the diner. The city. She had to run again. Because if the Lycan King was here, her hiding place was no longer safe. It was a tomb waiting to be discovered. She fumbled with her apron strings, ignoring the trucker's annoyed glare. She threw the rag onto the counter and bolted for the staff exit, shoving her way into the cold, unforgiving rain. Chapter 2. The Court Summons. Fleeing the diner was one thing, escaping her own blood was another. Ayla ran through the drenched alleyways, her cheap sneakers soaked and her heart hammering a frantic rhythm against her ribs. Rain plastered her thin hair to her face. She didn't have a plan. She just knew she had to disappear before he sensed her, before that impossible, undeniable bond flared and painted a target on her back. She burst into the lobby of her run-down apartment building, the scent of mildew and boiled cabbage a familiar, miserable comfort. But the moment the lobby door clicked shut, the air changed. It didn't just get quiet. It went still. The electrical hum from the vending machine died. The flickering fluorescent light overhead buzzed once, then went out, plunging the small space into near darkness. Ayla stopped, her hand still on the door. A feeling prickled across her skin, sharp and hot. Ozone. Magic. No, she breathed. She stumbled back, but the lobby door was sealed, as if held by a giant hand. Then, the pain started. It wasn't a memory. It was a brand. A sudden, searing heat erupted on the inside of her left wrist. Ayla cried out, clutching her arm. She ripped up the sleeve of her flimsy jacket. There, on her skin, a mark was glowing. It was the old pack sigil, a crescent moon crossed by a lightning bolt. A mark she shared with every wolf from her homeland. A mark that had been pale and dormant for 5 years. Now, it burned a bright, angry silver. This was not a letter. It was not a phone call. This was the summons. She knew what it meant. The tales were ancient. When a new king took the high throne, the magic of the territories had to be realigned. Every wolf, even rogues and the rejected, had to present themselves. It was a re-registration. A magical census to bind their wolves to the new alpha of alphas. To Ronan. "I won't," she whispered, defiant. "I won't go." The silver light on her wrist flared. The heat intensified, climbing her arm, scorching a path along her veins. It felt like fire. It felt like her very essence was being pulled from her body, drawn toward a single, central point. The summons wasn't a request. It was a magical law. To defy it was to have her own wolf tear itself apart from the inside out. She had to go. She had to face the council. She had to stand in the same room as him. The realization shattered her panic, replacing it with a cold, hollow dread. This was why he was here. Not just a royal visit. It was a gathering. A magical consolidation of his power. And she, the girl who learned to hide, had just been illuminated by a beacon only shifters could see. Her terror was so profound it almost choked her. He would see her. He would know she was alive. What would he do? Would he finish the rejection? Would he pity her? Or, worst of all, would he look at her with that same cold indifference from that last day? The burning in her arm subsided to a dull, insistent throb. A compass. A leash. It was pulling her. The grand court hall at the city's edge. Tomorrow. At moonrise. She sank to the dirty linoleum floor, her back against the sealed door. She was trapped. She had spent 5 years building a fragile, broken life in the shadows, and in a single night, it was all gone. Because Ronan had come. And fate, that cruel and vicious mistress, was dragging her back to him by a chain made of magic. As she sat there, trembling in the dark lobby, a new sensation crept in. Beneath the lingering ozone, a different scent. Faint. Far off. But unmistakable. Pines. Winter. He was close. Oh gods, he was already so close. The pull in her wrist was not just magic, it was him. The energy in the air was his. There was no escape, the path only led forward, straight into the heart of her nightmare. Chapter 3. The first glimpse. Stepping into the grand court hall was like walking into her own execution. The air was so thick with shifter power it was hard to breathe. It smelled of old stone, burning herbs, and the distinct, metallic tang of hundreds of wolves gathered in one place. Marble columns soared toward a domed ceiling painted with constellations. This wasn't a human building, it was a fortress of the new Lycan regime, temporarily established in the heart of the city. Ayla kept her jacket hood low, her head bowed. She moved along the wall, trying to use the shadows. Be small. Be invisible. Be nothing. But her wolf was awake. After 5 years of starvation, it paced the cage of her mind, electrified by the proximity of so many of its kind. And by him. His presence was a physical weight on the entire room. A dominant, oppressive force that demanded obedience. She could feel him before she saw him, the way you feel a thunderstorm approaching. She risked a glance. Her breath caught. He was not on a throne, but standing near the center of the hall, speaking with 2 grim-faced council elders. He was not the boy who had rejected her. That Ronan was gone. This man was a king. He was taller than she remembered, a mountain of contained power, dressed in severe black. His hair, the color of a raven's wing, was longer, tied back. But it was his stance. The sheer, uncompromising authority. He didn't just occupy space, he commanded it. Ayla's heart, that stupid, traitorous organ, gave a painful lurch. She had to leave. The re-registration required her presence, but maybe she could sign the ledger, touch the attunement stone, and slip out before he ever turned his head. She sidled toward the registration tables, her eyes glued to the floor. Don't look up. Don't look up. But the bond, the cursed, broken, unwanted bond, had other ideas. It wasn't a thought. It was a physical blow. A golden rope, dormant for half a decade, snapped taut between their souls. Air. Her lungs seized. Ayla's head snapped up against her will. And his head turned. Time didn't slow down. It shattered. His eyes, no longer the laughing green she remembered, but a cold, molten gold, the color of a predator's, slammed into hers from across the massive room. Recognition. Shock. Fury. Ronan froze. The elders beside him stopped talking. The entire hall seemed to dim as all his power focused on her. A sound ripped from his chest. It wasn't a word. It was a possessive, primal growl. Ayla skidded into a dead-end alley, the stench of old garbage and wet pavement thick in her lungs. A chain-link fence topped with barbed wire blocked one end. A rusted metal dumpster sealed the other. Brick walls, slick with grime, rose on either side. A trap. She spun around, her breath catching in a sob. He was there. Ronan filled the alley entrance. He wasn't a man. He was a shadow against the distant streetlights, a silhouette of pure, contained menace. The rain fell, but it seemed to sizzle into steam before it ever touched his skin. The sheer heat and power rolling off him was a physical force, pressing the air from the small space. You ran, he said. His voice was not the command that had shaken the great hall. It was a low, guttural rasp. It vibrated in the narrow passage, seeming to come from the stones themselves. Ayla pressed her back against the cold, wet brick. Her entire body screamed at her, a chorus of ancient instincts. Submit. Apologize. Beg. This was the alpha of alphas. This was the king. Please, she whispered, her voice trembling. Just let me go. I won't cause any trouble. I'll leave the city. You'll never see me again. He took one step. The alley, which had been a trap, suddenly became a cage. The air thinned, and she couldn't breathe. Let you go, he repeated. His voice was laced with a disbelief so profound it was almost an insult. You've been hiding. For 5 years. You let the world, believe you were dead. You didn't want me. Her voice cracked, a shard of her old, buried pain finally surfacing. You made that perfectly clear to everyone. His eyes flashed, that terrifying molten gold. I made a choice. You made yourself a ghost. You erased yourself. Why? Why? The question was so absurd, so monumentally cruel, that it snapped her terror like a dry twig. In its place, a cold, hard rage solidified. It was the anger of the broken, of the abandoned. Why? She repeated, and her voice was no longer a whisper. It was sharp. You rejected me, Ronan. You stood before the entire pack on the day of my first shift, and you rejected me. You cast me out. You broke the bond. What was I supposed to do? Stay? She was shaking, but it was not from fear. It was from the injustice of it. Was I supposed to stay and watch you choose someone else? She spat. Watch you build a life on the ashes of mine. I did what I had to survive. He stalked closer. Now she was drowning in his scent. The pine. The winter. And something new, something that had not been there 5 years ago. Ozone. The sharp, electric tang of ancient, consolidated magic. It was the scent of his power. The king. I did what I had to do, he growled, the sound a low warning. And I am doing what I must do, she shot back. He stopped, just an arm's length away. The sheer size of him was overwhelming. He loomed over her, a predator studying its prey. She had to tilt her head back just to see his face. His features were harder now. Sharper. Carved from stone and shadow. Your survival, he said, his voice dangerously soft, is bound to mine. You should not have come back. I didn't want to come back. Ayla's hands balled into fists. Your magic. Your summons. It dragged me here. The energy between them was pulsing. The broken bond was screaming. It hated this proximity. It was a raw nerve, exposed to the air. It wanted to be whole, or it wanted to be completely severed. There was no in-between. You felt it, then, he murmured. It found you. He looked, not angry. Not for a second. He looked haunted. This was her chance. This was the opening. He was distracted. She had to end this. End the ambiguity. End the bond for good. She took a ragged breath. She had practiced these words in her mind 1,000 times over 5 years. A bitter prayer in the dark. It doesn't matter, she said, forcing her voice to be steady, though her heart was fracturing. It's too late. You broke the bond, but you never completed the rite. It was broken, but it wasn't severed. A dark, sudden understanding dawned on his face. His golden eyes widened, not in anger, but in alarm. Ayla, don't. You don't know what you're doing. I do, she said, her voice ringing with the terrible finality of a death knell. She placed a hand over her own heart, a symbolic gesture for a magical act. I, Ayla of the Crescent Moon Pack, formally and finally accept your rejection. The air didn't just still. It ignited. A shockwave of pure, white-hot magic erupted from her chest. It was not a sound. It was a silent scream of energy. It slammed into Ronan. He roared. It wasn't a human sound. It was the sound of a great beast caught in a steel trap. The magic didn't just hit him, it rebounded. It struck Ayla, throwing her back against the brick wall. Her head cracked against the stone. Black spots danced in her vision. But her pain was nothing. Ronan collapsed. He dropped to his knees, his hands clawing at his own chest. He wasn't breathing. He was choking. Black, magical energy, like tendrils of living smoke, wrapped around his throat, his chest, his heart. What did you do? He gasped, his voice a strangled rasp. Ayla stared in absolute horror. This wasn't supposed to happen. The ritual was supposed to free them. It was supposed to be a quiet death of the bond. Instead, she had just tied a noose. And the Lycan King was suffocating. Chapter 5. Fate's Cruelty. The black smoke choking Ronan receded. It didn't fade, it sank back into his skin like a tattoo being absorbed. He stayed on his knees for a long, agonizing moment. His head was bowed, his shoulders heaving, his breath coming in harsh, tearing gasps. The rain hammered down on his broad back, but he didn't seem to notice. Ayla's own breath was gone. I don't understand, she stammered, sliding down the wall. Her head throbbed. The rite. It was supposed to sever the tie. It was supposed to set us free. Ronan finally lifted his head. His eyes were no longer molten gold. They were a terrifying, incandescent red. This was not Ronan. This was the Lycan. His inner beast was at the surface, pushed there by primal pain and a fear so deep it had become rage. Free? He laughed. It was a bitter, terrifying sound that held no humor. You fool. Did you truly believe it would be so simple? He rose to his feet. He didn't stand like a man. He rose like a storm cresting, a wave of pure power and fury. What you did, he snarled, stalking toward her, was not severance. It was a condemnation. Ayla flinched, pressing her palms flat against the grimy brick. What are you talking about? It was the final acceptance. The ritual. It was an acceptance, he confirmed. His voice was a low vibration that shook her bones. You accepted the rejection. And in doing so, you awakened the curse. Curse? The word felt alien. It was from old lore. Whispers told in the dark. It was nothing real. That's a myth. A story to scare pups. It is not a myth, he roared. The ground trembled. A web of cracks spread on the brick he wasn't even touching. It is my bloodline. It is the price of the Lycan King's power. He was in front of her now, caging her in. He slammed one hand against the wall by her head. The brick cracked and spiderwebbed under the force of the impact. Ayla yelped, squeezing her eyes shut. Look at me, he commanded. She forced her eyes open. His red gaze burned into hers. The king's curse, he explained, his voice tight with a fury she couldn't understand. It is a magical failsafe. The first Lycan King's mate was assassinated. His enemies used her to break him. To prevent it from ever happening again, he bound his life force to his fated. The bond became absolute. Indestructible. A living chain. Ayla's mind was racing, trying to catch up. But you rejected me. You broke it. I tried. He slammed his other fist into the wall, shattering more stone. I rejected you to save you. To keep the curse from ever awakening. It sleeps as long as the bond is just a bond. A possibility. But once rejected, it can never, ever be formally accepted. His voice dropped to a lethal hiss. Because to do so, to have both sides agree the bond is broken, is to tell the ancient magic that the maid is dead. The horror dawned, cold and sharp. Oh God. Yes, he seethed. You just told my magic, my soul, that you are dead. And my soul. It tried to kill my body to follow you into the grave. Ayla was shaking her head, horrified. No. I didn't know. I just wanted to be free. There is no free, he shouted. Not for us. Not anymore. He backed away, a tremor running through his massive frame. The incandescent red in his eyes receded, leaving the haunted, burning gold. He looked exhausted. Beaten. My life, he said, his voice flat, is now chained to yours, Ayla. Your acceptance didn't sever the bond. It inverted it. It turned it from a blessing into a lethal weapon. He turned his back to her, a move of profound trust or ultimate dismissal. He looked out at the rain-swept street. I can't be more than a mile from you, or the magic will begin to choke me. I will feel every injury you feel. And, he paused. The silence stretched, filled only by the downpour and the frantic hammering of Ayla's heart. And what? She whispered, terrified of the answer. Ronan turned his head just enough to look at her from the corner of his eye. His profile was stark and grim. And if you die, I die. The words hung in the air. Final. Absolute. A death sentence for two. Ayla's legs gave out. She slid to the ground, the filthy alley water soaking her jeans. This was so much worse than a broken heart. This was a cage. She looked at the man she had tried to escape. He was no longer her long-lost alpha. He was her jailer. And in a terrifying way, he was her prisoner. So, she said, her voice numb. What happens now? Now, Ronan said, his voice devoid of all emotion, you don't leave my sight. Ever. He was already pulling a phone from his pocket, his movements stiff. Guards. To my location. We have a security breach. He glanced at her, his eyes as cold as the winter he smelled of. My life is in your hands. Which means your life is in mine. Chapter 6. Forced proximity. The alley filled with shadows. 2 men, then 4, appeared from the street. They were not the court guards Ayla had seen earlier, in their formal uniforms. These were Ronan's personal sentinels, the Alpha Guard. They were huge, dressed in black tactical gear, and moved with a silent, lethal grace that was not human. They were killers. They formed a perimeter around the alley, their eyes scanning the rooftops, the windows, the darkness. They didn't look at Ayla. To them, she was a package. A liability. My king, one of them murmured, bowing his head. His name was Kale, his face a roadmap of old scars. Are you harmed? I am, compromised, Ronan bit out. He didn't look at the guard. He looked at Ayla, his gaze intense, possessive, and full of resentment. The girl is to be considered vital. Asset priority 0. If she is scratched, I bleed. Understood. The guard's expressions tightened. They understood the implication. Their king's life, the most powerful wolf alive, was now tied to this nothing. This rain-soaked, terrified woman. Their eyes flicked to Ayla, and she saw it clearly. Contempt. Resentment. This was her new life. She was no longer just the rejected. She was the king's great weakness. We move to the citadel now, Ronan ordered. He grabbed Ayla's upper arm. His grip was steel. It didn't hurt, but it was inescapable. No. Ayla tried to rip her arm free, a pointless, panicked gesture. I'm not going anywhere with you. You can't make me. I can, he snarled, dragging her forward. You don't have a choice. Your feelings are irrelevant. Your life is my life. You will be protected, whether you want it or not. Because I must be protected. He was hauling her out of the alley, his guards forming a tight diamond around them. They moved fast. The street was empty, the rain washing the world clean. A black, armored vehicle, looking more like a tank than a car, was waiting at the curb, its engine a low thrum. And that's when the world exploded. It wasn't a sound. It was a scent. A hot, coppery smell of blood. The acrid, bitter tang of wolfsbane. And a rank, unfamiliar predator musk that made Ayla's own wolf howl in terror. Ambush! Kale yelled. A massive form dropped from the sky. It didn't land on the street. It landed on the hood of the armored car, crushing the engine block with a shriek of tortured metal. It was a wolf. But it was wrong. It was half-shifted, a monstrous, twisted creature of pure rage. Its spine was elongated, its fur matted with black ichor. Claws as long as daggers dripped with something that sizzled on the car's hood. Its eyes were pure milky white. A berserker. Garm, Ronan whispered, his voice vibrating with pure hatred. Before Ayla could even process the name, the monster moved. It wasn't targeting Ronan. It wasn't targeting the guards. It was lunging with blinding speed for her. It knew. The rival Alpha knew about the curse. This was an assassination. Ayla screamed. She had no time to move, no time to think. She was frozen, a mouse watching the hawk dive. Ronan roared. He didn't push her out of the way. He became her shield. In a blur of motion too fast for her human eyes to track, he spun. He threw his back to the attacker and wrapped his arms around Ayla, crushing her against his chest. She was enveloped in him. The smell of pine. The solid, unyielding wall of his body. She felt the impact. A sickening thud as the rival alpha's claws, meant for her heart, tore through Ronan's back. Ronan's whole body went rigid. A strangled, agonized sound was ripped from his throat. But Ayla felt it too. A white-hot, searing pain exploded across her own back. It was so real, so vivid, she could feel the phantom claws tearing her own flesh. She shrieked, the agony blinding. "If you die, I die. I will feel every pain you feel." This was real. This was the curse. Ronan's guards opened fire. They weren't using guns. They unleashed concussive blasts of blue kinetic energy from their palms. The rival alpha, Garm, was thrown back, howling in rage as it slammed into a building. Ronan stumbled, but he didn't let her go. He held her upright, his breath hot and ragged in her ear. "He's bleeding," she gasped, her hands coming up to clutch his shirt. "We're both bleeding," Ronan ground out, his voice thick with a pain that was hers and his. The rival alpha was back on its feet, shaking its massive head, ready for another lunge. "Get her in the car," Ronan bellowed. He didn't wait for his guards. He grabbed her, half carrying, half dragging her, and threw her into the back of the vehicle. He piled in right after her, landing heavily, his body shielding hers even inside the supposed safety of the car. "Go. Go now." The vehicle tore away from the curb just as the Alpha Garm slammed into its side, the armored plating groaning but holding. Ayla was trembling uncontrollably, her back a map of phantom fire. She was crammed in the dark, luxurious space, her body pressed uncomfortably against Ronan's. He was breathing hard. His blood, hot and metallic, was soaking through the back of his shirt. And through hers. "You're hurt," she whispered, her voice shaking. Ronan leaned his head back against the seat, his eyes closed. His face was pale, beaded with sweat. "He knew," he panted. "He wasn't trying to kill me. He was trying to kill you." The implication was horrifying. The curse wasn't a secret. It was a weakness. A target. Ronan opened his eyes, the gold burning with a cold, terrifying fire. He looked at her, his prisoner, his anchor, his one vulnerability. "Welcome to my world, Ayla," he whispered, as the car sped toward the fortified citadel. "You are now the most valuable and the most hunted woman alive." Chapter 7. A prison made of gold. The armored vehicle plunged into an underground tunnel. It moved with a speed that pressed Ayla deep into the leather seat. Ronan had not let go of her arm. His grip was a manacle of flesh and bone. The phantom pain in her back still flared, a hot, stinging reminder of the attack. Of his wound. They didn't drive up to a palace. They drove into it. The tunnel opened into a vast, subterranean cavern lit by stark blue lights. It was a military base, not a home. Guards and sentinels, all bearing the same hard-faced, lethal focus as Kale, moved among vehicles and equipment. Ayla was dragged out of the car and into a pressurized elevator. The ascent was silent and sickeningly fast. When the doors opened, the military's starkness vanished. It was replaced by an opulence so extreme it felt like a slap. They were in a penthouse suite that spanned the entire top floor of the citadel. Floors of polished black marble reflected the city lights far below. Furniture was sparse but elegant. The walls were glass. Ayla walked to the window. The city she had hidden in for 5 years looked like a map of tiny, meaningless lights. She could see everything. And she was trapped. "This isn't a home," she whispered, her voice rough. "It's a watchtower." "It is secure," Ronan's voice came from behind her. A team of healers, 2 men and a woman in gray tunics, had entered. They swarmed Ronan, their hands glowing with a soft, green light. "My king, you're back," the woman began. "Leave it," Ronan commanded. "But the wolfsbane toxin." "I said leave it," he roared. Ayla flinched. She watched, confused, as the healers backed away, bowing. Ronan turned his cold, gold eyes on her. "They cannot heal me. Not completely." He pointed to her back, where her cheap diner uniform was still damp. "Because the wound is not just mine. The curse sees your body as the primary vessel. As long as you feel the echo of the injury, my body cannot fully mend." He gestured to the healers. "Tend to her." Ayla recoiled. "Don't touch me." The healers looked at Ronan, terrified. "She doesn't have a choice," Ronan said. He took a step toward her. You are my weakness, girl. Your pain is my distraction. Your death is my end. You will be healed. You will be fed. You will be kept safe. He was close now, his pine and winter scent overwhelming her senses. And you will never be alone, he finished. The healers gently took her arm. Ayla wanted to fight, but she was exhausted. The phantom pain was too real. She let them lead her to a chair. As their green glowing hands hovered over her back, she felt the stinging heat fade. It was replaced by a cool, pleasant numbness. Across the room, Ronan let out a low, ragged breath of relief. His shoulders, which had been rigid with pain, finally relaxed. The healers finished and fled the room as if escaping a predator. You're a prisoner, Ayla, Ronan stated. He walked to a massive, dark wood desk. You will eat what you are brought. You will sleep in the room you are given. You will not speak to any guard or any member of my court, because any one of them might see you as a target. A way to control me. This is insane, she said, her voice shaking with a new, cold anger. This is my life, he shot back. He turned to Kale, the scarred guard who had never left the doorway. She is your only priority. Then his gaze locked back on Ayla. It was a look that chained her, heavier than any iron. But I will be your constant protector. No one gets near you. Not my guards. Not my council. Not without my permission. You are mine to protect. She realized the truth. This was not protection. This was ownership. Chapter 8. Emotional Minefield. The next morning began not with a sunrise, but with an order. Ronan dragged her from the silk-sheeted bed, a bed in a room with no handle on the inside of the door, and threw a set of black training clothes at her. You are weak, he stated, his voice flat. Your human life has made you soft. Your weakness is my death sentence. You will learn to defend yourself. He forced her into a vast, matted training room. The air smelled of sweat, steel, and something primal. The training was brutal. He was not a kind teacher. He did not care about her exhaustion or her fear. He attacked her again and again, forcing her to dodge, to block, to find a strength she did not know she had. Again, he commanded, after sweeping her legs out from under her. Ayla crashed to the mat, the air punched from her lungs. Tears of frustration and rage stung her eyes. I can't. You're too strong. Garm won't care, he roared, hauling her to her feet. The assassin won't care. They want you dead. Do you understand that? They want to put a blade in your heart just to watch me fall. Fight back. He lunged. This time, Ayla's anger snapped. She didn't just block. She struck. She brought her elbow up, connecting with his side. It was like hitting a wall of stone. But he grunted. He stopped, surprised. And in that moment, the air changed. The anger in his eyes flickered, replaced by something hotter. Darker. His wolf was at the surface. It looked at her not as a king, but as a male. Good, he breathed. The word was a purr. Before Ayla could react, he grabbed her arm. His fingers wrapped around her bicep. It was not a memory. It was an electric shock. A jolt of pure, white-hot want shot from his skin to hers. It traveled up her arm and pooled, hot and heavy, low in her belly. Ayla gasped. She stared at his hand on her skin. Ronan froze. His golden eyes widened. He could feel it too. He was feeling her reaction. The bond was a two-way street. He ripped his hand away as if he'd been burned. He looked at his own fingers, disgusted. Enough. For now. He stalked out of the room, leaving her trembling, her body aching from the training and humming from that single, forbidden touch. She hated him. She hated his control. She hated his power. And she hated the treacherous, stupid part of her body that remembered him. Later, they were in the grand dining hall. Ayla was forced to sit at his right hand. The long table was filled with 24 alphas and court nobles. They stared at her. They whispered. She was the king's weakness. The ghost. The rogue. A thin, haughty woman, Lady Alara, leaned past the alpha next to her. So this is the little stray, she said, her voice carrying in the silence. The king should have let you stay dead. You smell of the human city. Filthy. Ayla's face burned. She instinctively looked down. A sound, like stones grinding together, came from Ronan. He didn't look at the woman. He didn't move. But his voice dropped, and the entire, massive room went ice cold. Lady Alara. The woman froze. Ronan slowly turned his head. His eyes were not gold. They were the burning, incandescent red of the Lycan. If you ever speak to her again, he said, his voice a lethal, vibrating promise, you will lose your tongue. Leave. The woman turned white. She scrambled from her chair and fled the hall. Silence. Ayla stared at him. He wasn't looking at her. He was looking at his plate. He hadn't defended her. He had defended his property. But the air around him, which had been agitated and angry, was calm. His Lycan, the red-eyed beast, had surfaced to defend her, and now it was at peace. Her presence, her proximity, was stabilizing him. This was the emotional minefield. His wolf wanted her. His mind hated her. And she was trapped between the two. Chapter 9. The First Test. That night, the fortress felt wrong. The air was too still. Ayla was in her opulent bedroom, but she couldn't sleep. Ronan was in the adjoining study, separated by a thick oak door. He claimed he didn't sleep. He watched. Ayla paced. Her wolf, silent for so long, was restless. It was pacing the cage of her mind, sniffing the air. Something was out of place. She felt a sudden, sharp prickle. Not on her skin. Inside her mind. It was the bond. It was a flare of alarm. But it wasn't her own. It was his. She ran to the adjoining door and threw it open. Ronan was at his desk, poring over maps. He looked up, his eyes sharp. What? I don't know, Ayla said, her voice breathless. Some things. A shadow detached itself from the ceiling of the wide balcony. It wasn't Garm. This was something else. A shifter so fast, so fluid, it looked like living smoke. It wore black and its eyes glowed with a faint sick green. An assassin. Kale. Ronan roared, but the guards were in the hall, too far away. The assassin moved. It was a blur. It didn't go for Ayla. It went for Ronan. In its hand was a dagger, its blade a dull, wicked black. Wolfsbane. Garm was not trying to kill Ronan. He was testing the curse. He wanted to wound the king to see how badly it would cripple Ayla. If he could injure Ronan, Ayla would be weak, helpless. Easy to snatch. It was a brilliant, cruel test. Ronan was already moving, surging to his feet, his chair crashing backward. His fangs were descending. But the assassin was faster. The dagger flashed, thrown with lethal precision. It was aimed directly at Ronan's heart. Ayla didn't think. She didn't plan. Her mind screamed run, her body screamed hide. But her soul screamed protect. She moved. She launched herself across the few feet separating them. She didn't just push him. She hit him with a full-body tackle, a surge of desperate, primal strength she did not know she possessed. Thwack. They crashed to the hard marble floor. Ayla sprawled on top of him. The black dagger embedded itself deep in the thick, wooden upright of the desk, precisely where Ronan's heart had been a fraction of a second before. Heavy boots hammered the floor. Kale and the guards burst in, fanning out. But the assassin was gone. It had vanished back into the night, its test complete. Ronan was completely still. He lay on his back, the wind knocked out of him. Ayla was on top of him, her hands braced on his chest, her breath coming in ragged gasps. He was staring up at her. Not with anger. Not with gratitude. With pure, stunned disbelief. His heart hammered against her palms. His scent pine, winter, ozone, filled her lungs. He was warm. He was alive. He grabbed her wrists, his grip painfully tight. He pushed her off him, and they both scrambled to their feet. You saved me, he said, his voice rough. I don't know why, Ayla stammered, backing away. She was shaking violently. I moved. Ronan didn't look at the dagger. He looked at her. He touched his own chest, right where the dagger would have hit. Then his golden eyes, burning with a new, terrifying intensity, snapped to hers. The bond, he said, his voice a low vibration. I felt your panic. But you felt his intent. You knew he was throwing the dagger before I did. He took a step toward her. She took a step back. This is changing, he whispered. I feel everything you feel, Ayla. Every sting. Every drop of fear. He was close now, backing her against the wall. And apparently, he finished, his voice raw, you are starting to feel what is mine. Chapter 10. The Touch That Burns. The air in the training room was no longer just tense. It was electric. Yesterday, Ayla had been a victim. Last night, she had been a shield. This morning, she was something else entirely. She moved first. She did not wait for his command. Her fear, so cold and paralyzing, had burned away, leaving a hard, sharp anger. She lunged, a fast, furious jab aimed at his chest. Ronan caught her fist. His bare hand simply engulfed hers. His palm was warm, calloused, and radiated a power that stopped her blow cold. "Better," he grunted. His voice was a low rumble, different from before. "But you are still thinking. You are trying to hit me. Stop thinking. Feel." He released her and attacked. This was not the careful, controlled teaching of before. This was a test. He was a blur of black training clothes, a storm of precise, powerful movements. He wanted to see what she had. Ayla was overwhelmed. She dodged, she blocked, she retreated. He was a wall of muscle and speed. He was a force of nature. "You are weak because you choose to be," he snarled, his voice a whip. He swept her legs. She crashed to the mat. The impact slammed the air from her lungs. But a split second later, a sharp, echoing jolt of pain flared from Ronan. He grunted, his hand flying to his own back. The phantom pain. Her fall had hurt him. He looked at her, his golden eyes wide with a strange mix of pain and surprise. I'm sorry," she panted, pushing herself up. "Do not be sorry," he growled, pulling her to her feet. His grip on her arm was like a steel band. "Be better." He did not let go. His thumb, rough and warm, brushed the soft skin of her inner arm. It was not a thought. It was a fire. A liquid, molten heat shot from his skin to hers. It did not stop. It flooded her veins, a jolt of pure, undeniable want. It went straight to her chest, which tightened, and lower, to her stomach, which clenched with a hot, coiling need. Her breath caught. Ronan's eyes, the color of burning embers, slammed into hers. His nostrils flared. He could smell it. Her sudden, sharp arousal. His own reaction was instant. He could not hide it. Ayla felt it through the bond, a mirror image of her own desire. A dark, possessive hunger that was pure Lycan. He ripped his hand away as if her skin had burned him. He stumbled back, looking at his own fingers with a deep, profound disgust. "This," he rasped, his voice strained, "is a complication." "Ronan," she breathed. Her body was humming. Her mind was screaming. This was dangerous. This was madness. "It's the bond," he snapped, turning away from her. "It's a lie. It's just magic trying to fix what we broke. It is not real." "I hate this," Ayla whispered, her voice shaking. She hated her own body for its betrayal. "I hate you." "Good," he said, his back to her. "Hold on to that. It's the only thing that will keep us sane." Kale, the scarred Alpha Guard, appeared at the doorway. He looked worried, his eyes flicking between them. "My king." An urgent message. From the High Elder. He held out a sealed scroll, the wax bearing the oldest sigil. Ronan snatched it. He broke the seal and unrolled the old parchment. Ayla watched his face. The color drained from it. The king, the predator, the man who feared nothing, went pale. He looked sick. "What is it?" Ayla asked, her own fear returning. "Is it Garm?" Ronan slowly crushed the parchment in his fist. He looked at her. His expression was one she had never seen before. It was not anger. It was raw, absolute dread. "It's a prophecy," he said, his voice hollow. The elder just confirmed it. "It's about the king's true mate." He stared at her, his eyes full of a terrible, new understanding. "It says she is not his salvation. She is his end." Chapter 11. The truth. His end. Ayla's voice was sharp. It cracked in the vast, silent study. "Is that what you believe? That I am some kind of walking curse sent to destroy you?" Ronan stood at the glass wall, a dark silhouette against the city lights far below. He had not spoken since they left the training room. The air was heavy, suffocating. "It is not what I believe," he finally said, his voice heavy with a grief she could not place. "It is what I know." "You are not making any sense," she cried, her frustration boiling over. "You lock me in this tower. You talk about curses and prophecies. You saved my life, and now you look at me like I'm your executioner. What is this?" He turned. His face was a mask of old, settled pain. The king was gone. The cold Alpha was gone. This was just Ronan. And he looked broken. "Sit down, Ayla." "No." She stood her ground. "You have dropped." He did not wait. He launched himself over the desk. He was not a man. He was a king. Fangs descended. His eyes bled to pure Lycan red. His hands became claws. He met the first assassin in a blur of motion. It was not a fight. It was an execution. The assassin was fast. Ronan was power. He tore the creature apart, a spray of dark blood hitting the white marble. The other two assassins saw it. They did not flinch. They did not run. They dodged Ronan. They leaped over the fight, their green eyes fixed on Ayla. Kale intercepted one, his silver-edged sword sparking against the assassin's dagger. The third one was free. It landed on the desk, scattering parchment. It crouched low, a predator. It looked right at Ayla. It smiled. Ayla screamed. She scrambled backward, her back hitting the cold glass wall. She was cornered. The assassin raised its dagger. A black shape slammed into it from the side. Ronan. He tackled the creature, and they both smashed into the reinforced window. The glass cracked with a sound like thunder, spiderwebbing. Ronan roared, a sound of pure, possessive fury. He sank his fangs into the assassin's neck and tore. It was over in seconds. Silence. The suite was a wreck. 2 guards were dead. Kale was breathing heavily, a deep cut on his arm. Ronan stood over the last assassin, his chest heaving. The red light of his Lycan eyes slowly faded back to gold. He was drenched in the dark blood of his enemies. He turned to Ayla. She was shaking, huddled against the cracked glass. They didn't even try to fight you," she whispered, her voice trembling. They wanted me." "I know," Ronan said, his voice grim. Kale grunted. He was rolling over the assassin that had landed on the desk. "My king. Look." The assassin's black tunic was torn open. Carved into the flesh of its chest, fresh and bleeding, was a message. A symbol. It was Garm's pack sigil, a broken thong. And beneath it, 3 words, seared into the skin like a brand. "Kill the girl. Break the king." Ayla stared at the words. This was her fault. All of it. The dead guards. The attack. Ronan's impossible choice. She was not a person. She was a weapon. She was the key to killing the Lycan King. Ronan saw her face. He saw the horror dawn. "Ayla," he said, his voice soft. She looked up. Her terror was gone. It was replaced by a cold, hard resolve. She finally understood everything. "You can't let me go," she said. It was not a question. "No," he replied. "And I can't run," she continued, her voice gaining strength. "Because if I run, they will find me. And they will kill me. And you will die." "Yes." She stood up. She was still shaking, but her chin was high. She walked past the bodies of the dead. She walked right up to Ronan, stopping just before him. She looked up at the king who had tried to save her by breaking her heart. "You tried to protect me by pushing me away," she said, her voice clear and cold. "It didn't work." She looked at the bodies. She looked at him. "Now, we protect each other by staying together." Ronan's golden eyes searched hers. He saw no fear. He saw a new, terrible strength. "I will not hide anymore," she said. "I will stay by your side. Temporarily. Until we fix this. Until we find Garm. And until we find a way to break this curse."
Chapter 13. The Pact of Scars. The suite was a graveyard of opulence. The bodies of the assassins and the 2 fallen guards were gone, but the scent of their blood, a coppery, dark stain on the air, remained. It mixed with the sharp smell of ozone from the shattered security wards. Servants, moving with silent, terrified speed, were replacing the massive, spiderwebbed window. The sound of new glass sliding into its frame was the only sound. Ayla stood by the wreck of the desk. She felt cold. She was not a prisoner anymore. She was a target, a walking, breathing death sentence for the man across the room. Ronan was watching the new window slide into place. His back was to her. He was a statue of contained rage. The fight had left him untouched, but the reason for the fight had broken something open. Ayla took a breath, the first one that felt like her own. "This changes nothing," she said. Her voice, clear and steady, cut through the room. Ronan turned slowly. His golden eyes were hard, but the red edges of his Lycan were gone. He was listening. "I still want to be free of you," she continued, walking toward him. She would not be small. She would not hide. "I still want to be free of this curse. But they won't stop. Garm won't stop." "No," Ronan agreed. His voice was a low rumble. "He will not. You try to protect me by rejecting me. It failed. You try to protect me by locking me in this tower. It failed." She stopped, standing in the center of the ravaged room. "They nearly killed you. Twice. Because of me." He said nothing. He just watched her. He was seeing the girl from the diner burn away, replaced by this new, cold fire creature. "So," she said, "we make a new deal. A pact." "A pact?" he asked, a single eyebrow raising. He was skeptical. "You are the most powerful Lycan alive. But you're also a target. Because of me, I am your weakness." She pointed at him, then at herself. "But you are my only protection. We are a chain. And right now, every link is breaking. What do you propose, Ayla? His voice was careful. We stop hiding. We stop reacting. We hunt him. She was vibrating with a new, terrifying energy. You want to protect me? Fine. But you will not lock me away. You will train me. You will teach me everything you know. And in return, I will be your bait. I will be your weapon. I will be whatever it takes to end Garm and break this curse. We are a team, not mates, not prisoners. A team for survival. That is the pact. Ronan stared at her for a long, heavy moment. He saw her resolve. He saw her anger. And he saw her strength. It was the first time he had truly seen her. He nodded. Once. A team for survival. Later, he unrolled a massive map on the one unblemished table. This is Garm's territory, he said. His finger, blunt and scarred, tapped a dark forest region. He is hitting my supply lines. Here and here. He isn't trying to win a war. He is trying to isolate me. He looked at her, his gaze sharp. Now, he's trying to isolate you. Ayla leaned over the map. Her hair brushed his arm. A tiny spark like static jumped between them. She flinched. He growled, a low sound in his chest. That night, Ayla lay in her bed. The door to her room was unlocked, a sign of their new pact. But she could not sleep. A sound. It came from the adjoining room, from Ronan's chamber. It was not a growl. It was a low, pain groan. A man fighting himself. Ayla slipped from her bed. She padded to the adjoining door and pushed it open, just a crack. Ronan was not in his bed. He was on the floor, his back braced against the wall. He was drenched in sweat. His hands were clenched into white-knuckled fists. His eyes were open, and they were blazing incandescent red. The Lycan was at the surface, a primal beast fighting for control. He was muttering. His head was thrown back, his throat corded with strain. She could just make out the word. Ayla. He said it again. Not in anger. Not in fear. It was a call. A desperate, possessive claim. Mine. Chapter 14. The Scent of Survival. The morning found the Citadel in a state of high alert. The alliance, forged in blood and desperation, was immediately put to the test. Ronan was pushing his counsel, demanding answers, his temper a blade hanging over everyone's head. His Lycan was close to the surface, agitated by the call it had made for Ayla, and she could feel its restless energy like a hum in her own blood. But the immediate crisis was Kale. Ayla found him in the infirmary. The scarred guard, who had been cut by the assassin's blade, was sweating. His face was pale. The healers looked worried. The toxin is not responding, one healer murmured. It is not just wolfsbane. It is something else. Ayla moved closer. She saw the wound. The skin around it was not red. It was a sickly, dark purple, with black veins spreading from it. She knew that plant. It's shadow root, she said, her voice clear. The healers, Kale and Ronan, who had just entered, all turned to look at her. From my time before, Ayla explained, her voice quiet. I worked in a human city, in a small shop. The woman who ran it was a hedge witch. She dealt with herbs. She had hidden this. It was a piece of her old, weak life. Shadow root is not a poison, she said, moving to the supply cabinets. It is a carrier. It makes other toxins bind to the blood. You cannot cure the wolfsbane until you neutralize the root. And how do we do that? Ronan asked. His voice was rough, but his eyes were fixed on her with a new, sharp intensity. Silver moss and rowan ash, Ayla said, pulling jars from the shelf. She moved with a confidence she did not know she possessed. She ground the herbs into a paste. It will burn. She approached Kale. He looked at Ronan. Ronan nodded. Kale offered his arm. Ayla applied the poultice. Kale hissed, his body going rigid, but he did not pull away. The black veins almost immediately began to recede. Ayla bandaged the arm. Kale looked at her. His eyes, once full of contempt for the king's weakness, now held a new, grudging respect. My thanks, he grunted. She just nodded. That night, the Citadel was quiet. Ayla found Ronan in the study. He was not at his desk. He was standing by the new window, staring down at the city lights. He looked tired. The weight of the crown, the curse, and the hunt, it was all pressing down on a single point. His shoulders were slumped. Ayla had a cup in her hand. A simple clay mug. I brought you something, she said. He turned. He looked suspicious. It is the same infusion I gave Kale, but without the ash, she explained. It calms the blood. It will help you rest. He stared at the cup. He was the king. He took nothing he was not sure of. Ayla held it out. It is a truce, Ronan. Not poison. He took it. His fingers brushed hers. The spark was there as always, but this time it was not a violent jolt. It was a slow, spreading warmth, like an ember. He drank. He closed his eyes, and a long, weary breath left him. "You are not the girl I remember," he whispered, his voice raw. "And you're not the alpha who rejected me," she replied, just as softly. He set the mug down. The air between them was thick, not with anger, but with a fragile, terrifying new emotion. "Kale is my oldest friend," Ronan said, his voice quiet. "We grew up together. My father, he was not a kind man. Kale was the only one he was my brother." It was a confession, a tiny piece of his soul offered in the dark. He was so close now. His scent of pine and winter was not a threat. It was a comfort. He reached out. He did not grab. His hand, scarred and powerful, came up. His thumb, rough and warm, brushed her jawline. Ayla's breath caught. "Ayla," he breathed. He leaned in. His golden eyes were soft, searching hers. He was not a king. He was just a man who was chained to her. She wanted it. Her body, her soul, her stupid, broken heart, it wanted this. She leaned in. Her eyes fluttered closed. His breath was on her lips. A sharp knock. Bam, bam, bam. Ronan and Ayla sprang apart, as if they had been caught in a crime. The spark was gone. The cold reality crashed back in. Kale burst into the room, his face grim. "My king, what is it?" Ronan snarled, his voice once again the alpha's. "It's Lady Ayla," Kale said, his voice heavy. "The one you banished from the dining hall. She has vanished from her quarters. Her rooms are empty, and the south perimeter sensors, they were just deactivated. From the inside, a betrayal." Chapter 15. The Price of Betrayal. "She betrayed us." Ronan's voice was not a roar. It was a low, lethal whisper, more terrifying than any shout. The betrayal, coming so soon after the moment of fragile peace, with a new kind underscore of underscore wound. Lady Ayla, bitter from her public humiliation, had sold them out. She had given Garm access to the heart of the Citadel. "Where?" Ayla asked, her voice tight. The warmth from that almost kiss had turned to ice. "The South Tower," Kale said, his hand on his sword. "It is the one place with direct access to the king's penthouse, other than the main elevator." Ronan was already moving. "Kale, lock down the Citadel. I want every sentinel at every entrance. Garm is here. He will not be alone," Ayla said, her mind racing. "Ayla must have had help." Ronan looked at her. "Stay here. Lock this door. Do not open it for anyone but me." "No," Ayla said. She grabbed a heavy, steel letter opener from the desk. It was a pitiful weapon, but it was something. "We are a team. For survival." "You said it. I am not your weakness, Ronan. Not anymore. I will not hide." His jaw tightened. He looked like he was going to argue. A sound. A low, magical hum. It seemed to come from the floor itself. "What is that?" Ayla whispered. Ronan's head snapped up. His eyes went wide with a dawning, terrible realization. "It's not an assault." Boom! The word was ripped from his throat as the entire south wall of the penthouse, the new window, the stone, the marble, exploded inward. A concussive blast of magical force threw them both from their feet. Ayla slammed into the far wall, her head cracking against the wood. Her vision swam. The sound was a high, piercing whine. Smoke and pulverized stone filled the air. She choked, her lungs burning. Through the ringing in her ears, she heard a sound she would never forget. A low, cruel laugh. She pushed herself up. The penthouse was open to the stormy night sky. Rain and wind whipped through the gaping hole. A figure stood in the center of the room. He was tall, dressed in dark leathers. His hair was long and white, plastered to his face by the rain. His eyes were the color of curdled milk. It was Garm, not in his beast form. As a man. "What a mess you have made," Garm sneered, his voice smooth. Ronan was already on his feet. He was in front of Ayla in a heartbeat, a wall of pure, snarling fury. His eyes were blazing red. "Garm!" Ronan roared. "King Ronan," Garm mocked with a bow. "And the little ghost. I am so glad you are both here." Ronan lunged. It was a battle of titans. The two alphas met in the center of the room. It was not a fight of claws and teeth. It was a war of power. They moved in blurs, their fists connecting with forces that shook the room. But Garm, he was just laughing. "You are so strong, Ronan," he taunted, dodging a blow that shattered the marble floor. "But you are still so stupid." "What did you do?" Ronan snarled, pressing the attack. "This," Garm said, his smile widening. "This was just a distraction." As he said it, the floor beneath Ronan's feet lit up. A circle of glowing, silver runes blazed to life. Silver chains, forged of pure, burning energy, shot up from the floor. They wrapped around Ronan's legs, his arms, his chest. AIH! Ronan roared in agony. The silver. It was burning him. It was searing his skin. He was trapped. Ronan! Ayla screamed. She had been forgotten. But not for long. Garm turned. He slowly walked past the trapped, roaring king. He stopped in front of Ayla. He was so close she could smell the cold, dead scent on him. He dies when you die, little ghost, Garm whispered. And you are very, very easy to kill. He lunged, his hand a claw, aimed right at her throat. Ronan was fighting, roaring, tearing at the magical bonds. But they held him. He was helpless. Ayla did not run. She did not scream. Her rage, her fear, and her new, fragile connection to the man burning in silver chains, it all converged. She grabbed a heavy, bronze statue of a wolf from a broken pedestal. You want him? She screamed, her voice raw. Garm stopped, just an inch from her. He looked surprised. Ayla hefted the statue, her knuckles white. She planted her feet between Garm and the trapped king. She was protecting him. You want him, she panted. You come through me. Garm stared at her. His milky white eyes were wide. And then he smiled. A slow, delighted, terrible smile. So he sneered. The little mouse has claws after all. He raised a hand. The shadows in the corners of the room, untouched by the storm, began to move. They lengthened, taking on shapes. I will enjoy this, Garm whispered, his voice full of dark promise. You will die at sunrise, girl, and he will be forced to follow. He vanished. He did not run. He dissolved into the shadows, his laugh echoing in the ruined room. Ayla was left, shaking, her arms burning from the weight of the statue. She stood alone, protecting a wounded, furious king. And outside the shattered wall, the first faint hint of gray was painting the sky. Sunrise was just hours away. Chapter 16. The shadows grip. The wind howled. Rain and shattered glass bit at Ayla's face. She stood, her arms aching from the weight of the bronze statue, a useless idol against a magical threat. Ronan roared. He was a magnificent, terrifying beast caught in a silver fire trap. The magical chains sizzled, melting his skin, but still he fought. Ayla, the shadows. They are not real. Do not let them touch you. She knew he was wrong. The shadows Garm had left behind were pooling in the corners of the ravaged room. They were not just darkness. They were cold. A deep, unnatural frost radiated from them, chilling the air, turning her breath to mist. I'm not afraid of you, Ayla yelled, though her heart was a frantic bird against her ribs. The shadows did not care. They did not attack. They slid. One of them, she could not hear him. The shadows deafened her. Then she was outside. She was in the cold, whipping rain. The city lights were a smear far below. She was being pulled through the air, a prisoner of the dark. The bond, that golden rope, did not break. It stretched. A new, agonizing pain ripped through her chest. It was not the cold. It was not the fear. It was the bond. It was being pulled taut over miles beyond its limit. It felt like her very soul was being torn in two. She could feel his pain, the silver, the rage, the terror, and he could feel hers. She was a ghost, stolen by the night. Chapter 17. The Viper's Deal. She landed hard. The impact knocked the stolen breath from her lungs. She was not in the sky. She was on a cold, damp floor. Earth. Ayla gasped, coughing. The air was foul. It smelled of mildew, wet stone, and something metallic. Like the cave was vast. Garm did not drag her. Ayla walked. She was numb. The tearing pain in her chest was a dull throb, a constant reminder of Ronan's agony. Garm's words echoed in her mind. He will be free. Free of you. She had been his ruin. Now, she could be his salvation. It was a simple, terrible equation. They entered a larger, domed cavern. In the center, a jagged spike of black, volcanic rock jutted from the earth. It was not an altar. It was an execution stake, dark and stained. At the top of the dome, a single, narrow fissure opened to the outside world. A faint, gray light, the first hint of the coming dawn, pierced the gloom. The sunrise, Garm said, his voice laced with anticipation. The blood curse. It will come for you with the first light. It will kill you, and Ronan will die. He gestured to the stake. Or, you choose. You perform the ritual. You sever the bond. He lives. Ow! Ayla's voice was a dry husk. Garm produced a dagger. It was not the black steel of his assassins. It was silver, gleaming, and wicked. You must reject him. Not with words. With blood. Your blood, willingly given. Carve your rejection into the sacred stake. The silver, your will, and the ancient stone. It will break the chain. He offered her the handle. Ayla looked at the blade. She looked at the faint, gray light. The blood curse was coming. She took the dagger. Her hand was perfectly steady. This was her choice. Her one, final act. She thought of Ronan. His sacrifice, all those years ago. His agony in the silver chains. His face, twisted in terror, as she was stolen. This was her one chance to give him back the life she had cost him. She turned to the stake. It felt cold. It felt hungry. "I am sorry," she whispered, a single, hot tear tracking through the grime on her cheek. She closed her eyes. She did not say the words for Garm. She said them for the bond, for the man at the other end of it. Let him live. She pressed the silver blade to her own palm. She did not hesitate. She sliced. Pain, hot and sharp. Blood welled, dark in the gloom. She pressed her bleeding hand, her offering, against the cold, black stone of the stake. The moment her blood touched the wood, the cave screamed. It was not a sound. It was a shockwave. The stone did not absorb her blood. It ignites. A pure, blinding, white light erupted from the stake. It was not the green of Garm's magic. It was not the red of the Lycan. It was silver and gold, a fire she had never seen. Garm roared. It was not a sound of triumph. It was a shriek of pure, agonizing pain. "What?" he bellowed, stumbling back. "No, it is not supposed to do this. This is not the ritual. What did you do?" Ayla stared at her hand. Her blood. It was not red on the stone. It was glowing. It was burning with a silver-white fire, a light that was coming from her. The power did not just stay on the stone. It exploded outward. It shot up her arm, into her chest. It felt like breathing fire. It was not a sacrifice. It was an awakening. Chapter 19. The blood that burns. No. Garm's shriek was a sound of pure, unadulterated panic. This is not the ritual. This is not the magic. He scrambled backward, throwing his arms up to shield his face. The milky white eyes, so full of cruel confidence, were now wide with terror. The light was not just on the stone. It was in Ayla. The silver-white fire from her bleeding palm did not stop. It surged up her arm, a torrent of liquid power. It hit her heart, and her entire world exploded. The tearing, agonizing pain of the stretched bond did not vanish. It changed. It transformed from a chain of agony into a conduit. A hollow, thrumming channel that was suddenly, violently, filled with a new fire. The silver-gold power rushed from her, down that invisible line, and slammed into the man at the other end. Ayla gasped. She could feel him. Not just his pain, not just his terror. She could feel Ronan. His very essence. His soul, trapped and burning in silver. She felt the searing heat of the chains, as if they were on her own skin. But now, her power, her light was fighting it. It was a cool fire battling a hot one. The prophecy. Garm howled, his voice cracking. He was huddled against the far wall of the cave, the new light searing his skin. I was wrong. His end. It was not his death. It was the end of his curse. Ayla stared at her hand. The blood. It was the key. This was not the blood of a victim. It was not the blood of a stray. It was the blood of the fated mate, fully, and finally, accepted by magic itself. It was the cure. Her awakened blood was the answer to both curses. It was the catalyst that could destroy the ancient, hateful magic that had poisoned his line for 1,000 years. The choice Garm offered, the choice to sacrifice, had been a lie, but it was the only choice that could have unlocked her power. I will kill you myself, Garm roared, his rage overcoming his fear. I will end this now. He lunged. He was a blur of shadows and white hair, his fangs bared, his hands claws. Ayla did not flinch. She did not even raise a hand. She pushed. She did not push with her arms. She pushed with the new, raw power thrumming in her chest. A shock wave of pure, concussive, silver-gold force erupted from her. It was not light. It was a physical wall of energy. It hit Garm like a mountain. He was thrown backward, not just pushed. He was hurled. He slammed into the far cave wall with a sickening crack of stone and, Ayla thought, bone. He did not get up. He lay in a heap, stunned and broken. Ayla stood. She was no longer trembling. The girl who hid in diners, the girl who scrubbed floors, the girl who flinched from her own shadow, was gone. She was glowing. Her eyes, she knew, were no longer brown. They were the color of the fire in her veins. She was not powerless. She looked at the tunnel leading out. She looked at the faint, gray light of the fissure overhead. The sun was coming. The blood curse was coming. And for the first time in her life, she was ready for a fight. She knew what she had to do. She had to get back to Ronan. Not just to save him. She had to get back to him to join him. Chapter 20. The Queen's Gambit. Garm groaned. He was a heap of dark leather and white hair, pinned against the far wall by the lingering force of Ayla's power. His arm was bent at an unnatural angle. The silver-gold fire had seared his skin, leaving black, smoking wounds. Ayla stood, her breath coming in deep, steadying lunges. The power was a wild, roaring river inside her. She felt strong. She felt whole. Her wolf, so long a starved and beaten thing, was now standing at her side. A partner. The cave rumbled. Dust filtered from the ceiling. Garm looked up. His milky white eyes found the fissure at the top of the cavern. The faint gray light was turning to a pale, deadly gold. The sunrise, he hissed, his voice a wet rasp. He smiled, a broken, bloody expression. You're still just a girl, and the curse will still take you. You have only delayed your death. Ayla walked toward him. She did not hurry. Her every step was deliberate. It was never my curse, she said. Her voice was not her own. It was deeper. It was layered with a new, silver-gold magic. It was the voice of a queen. It was his. And I am his cure. She looked at her hand. The cut was a clean, red line. But the blood inside was no longer just blood. It glowed, a soft light from within her own skin. She had to get out. Garm was a broken obstacle. But the sun was a death sentence. You have nowhere to run, Garm spat. You are miles from the citadel. You will be dead before you take 100 steps. He was right. Ayla looked at the tunnel entrance. It was the only way out, and Garm was between her and it. No, she remembered her life. She remembered 5 years of hiding, of scrubbing, of being invisible, of making herself small. She channeled the memory, the shame, the fear, the cold. She burned it. She burned it all as fuel for the new fire. You wanted a ghost, she said, her voice dropping. You have no idea how dangerous a shadow can be. She closed her eyes. She did not listen for Garm's pained breathing. She did not listen to the crumbling cave. She listened to the bond. It was her compass, her anchor. She reached out, along that the world dissolved. The valley was not a challenge. It was a path. Her paws did not just strike the earth, they devoured it. She moved with the impossible, unnatural speed of the magic that now fueled her. She was a silver gold streak, a living bullet aimed at a single target. The bond was a taut, burning, golden line in her mind, pulling her home. She felt Ronan's pain. The silver, the curse, the agonizing cold pull of the sun. She ran faster. She cleared a chasm, and Garm saw his chance. He saw the weakness. He saw the true target. He lunged, not at Ayla, but at the stumbling, weakened Ronan. A choice. Ayla moved. She did not attack Garm. She did not run. She shifted. The transformation back was a firestorm, an agony of reforming bones. She collapsed, naked, glowing, and human. The silver-gold fire and the icy void were ripping her apart. She was dying. Fools! Garm screamed, almost upon Ronan. You are both dead. Ayla ignored him. She crawled. She grabbed the front of Ronan's shirt. He looked at her. His eyes were wide. He was dying. Ayla, he gasped. I choose you, she whispered. She did not fight the cold. She did not fight the sun. She embraced the bond. I am your mate, she screamed, her voice raw. I choose this. I choose us. She slammed her bleeding, glowing hand against his chest. It was not a heal. It was a detonation. Ayla's silver-gold fire met Ronan's ancient golden power. They did not just meet. They fused. A silent, impossible shockwave of pure, white-gold light erupted from them. It was not a fire. It was a cleansing. The icy cold, the ancient blood curse, screamed. It was touched by this new, pure magic. It did not just retreat. It shattered. It dissolved. It was gone. The light washed over Garm. He looked down at his hands. They were turning to dust. He looked up, his milky eyes wide with one final, terrible understanding. The cure, he whispered. Then he was gone. Nothing but ash and the memory of his evil. The light receded, pulling back into Ayla and Ronan. They were left kneeling in the ruins. Panting. Alive. The sun, now fully in the sky, streamed in. It was not cold. It was warm. It was just the sun. The curse was broken. Ayla looked at Ronan. He was whole. His skin was clean. His power was calm. Ronan looked at her. He did not speak. He did not stand. He, the Lycan King, bowed his head. And he knelt. He knelt before his queen. Chapter 23. The Queen's Throne. The great hall was silent. It was a silence so profound it was like a living thing. Hundreds of alphas, betas, and court nobles stood frozen. They had been summoned by a roaring, frantic order from a stunned alpha guard. Kale stood near the dais, his hand on his sword, his face a mask of disbelief. He had found the king. In the ruined penthouse, he had found Ronan, kneeling before the little brown-haired stray. Only she was not a stray, and she was not little. The great oak doors of the hall swung open. No trampits, no annoncement. Ronan entered. He was not dressed in his black, severe armor. He wore a simple, deep green tunic, the color of the forest, the color of life. His face was calm. The burning, haunted rage that had defined him was gone. He looked peaceful. He walked to the center of the dais and turned. The doors were still open. Ayla entered. The entire court inhaled as one. She was not the cowering, rain-soaked girl. She was not the glowing, naked, and terrifying creature from the penthouse. She was dressed in a simple, white dress provided by a shaking, awestruck healer. Her hair was down. Her feet were bare. She walked with her head high, but it was her eyes. They were not brown. They were a soft, stunning silver gold, the color of her new magic. They held no fear. They held no anger. They held only resolve. She walked to the dais. She did not look at the stunned court. She looked at Ronan. He smiled. A real, true smile. It lit his entire face. "You have known my bloodline," Ronan's voice rang out. It was not the king's growl. It was a man's voice, clear and strong. "You have known our curse. For 1,000 years, the kings of my line have been poisoned. We were forbidden to love. We were doomed to lose what we cherished." He turned, his gaze sweeping the room. "The curse is broken." A wave of whispers. A disbelieving gasp from an old elder. Ronan held out his hand. Not in command. In invitation. "This," he said, his voice softening, "is Ayla, my fated mate. The one I rejected to save. The one who returned to save me." He took her hand. He pulled her gently to his side. The ancient rituals failed. The prophecies were misread. It was not a warrior. It was not a king. It was her. Her blood. Her choice. He turned to the crowd, his voice becoming iron. "She is not the king's weakness. She is the kingdom's salvation. She is not a rogue. She is not a stray." His voice boomed. "She is your queen." He gestured to the second throne on the dais. It was smaller than his, but more elegant. The Luna's seat, carved of white weirwood. It had been empty for his entire lifetime. Ayla looked at the throne. She looked at the hundreds of faces watching her. She remembered the diner. She remembered hiding. She remembered being invisible. She let go of Ronan's hand. She walked the 3 steps up. She turned, and she sat. She claimed her new identity. The entire hall fell to one knee. A single, unified, silent motion. Ronan walked to her. He did not kiss her. He did not lift her. He took her right hand, the one she had cut in the cave. A thin, silvery scar, glowing with a faint, inner light, was all that remained. He lowered his head. He pressed his forehead to the back of her hand. A king's fealty. Chapter 24. The scent of home. The palace gardens were a riot of life. Weeks had passed. The stone was mended. The court, once ruled by fear, was now learning to breathe. The scent of moon bloom, a flower that only opened in the bright, clean sunlight, filled the air. Ayla walked the pathways. She wore a simple blue dress, the color of the sky. She was not hiding. She reached out and touched a white petal. She remembered the feeling of hot grease on her hands, the smell of bleach, the constant, gnawing fear of being seen. It felt like a different life. A story about a girl she once knew. A girl she had saved. "You were a long way from the diner." The voice was a warm, familiar rumble. She did not startle. She did not flinch. She smiled before she even turned. Ronan stood there. He was not in armor. He was not in robes. He was just a man, his shirt sleeves rolled up. He looked happy. "I am," she said. He came to stand beside her. Not too close. Not possessive. Just with her. For a long moment, they just stood, watching the city below. The bond between them was not a chain. It was not a burning rope. It was a gentle, constant warmth. A hum. A quiet song. "I spent my entire life," he said, his voice soft, "afraid. Afraid of the curse. Afraid of my own heart. Afraid of this. And I spent 5 years," she replied, looking at him, "afraid of you." His golden eyes met her silver gold ones. "And now, she said, her voice full of a strength she had earned, "I am not afraid of anything." He reached out. His hand, scarred and strong, gently cupped her jaw. His thumb brushed her cheek. You are the most powerful person I have ever known, Ayla. No, she said, leaning into his touch. We are. He smiled. He leaned in. This was not the desperate, almost kiss in the study. This was not a moment stolen by hunger or the bond. This was a choice. He kissed her. It was slow. It was deep. It was not a king claiming his queen. It was not a wolf claiming his mate. It was a man, whole and healed, kissing the woman he loved. When they broke apart, she was breathless, but she was not weak. She looked out over the land. Her land. Ronan took her hand. They stood side by side, equal, chosen, powerful. She was no longer the girl who was forced to hide. She was the queen who had finally and truly come home.